We've got a Star Wars heavy episode today, folks, so buckle in. From Ahsoka to the future of the franchise. How can Star Wars get back to greatness? However, before we get into all of that, we are going to talk about Aquaman 2 in their early screenings, and a little bit about some comments that Bob Iger made and his belief that the culture war is not healthy for the Disney brand. So sit back, relax, and let's get into Bridging to Geekdoms. What's going on, everybody? How's it going? I got a comment already? Oh, look, he made it. Hey, Triton, what's going on, man? I'm glad you made it. You didn't have to rush. You do realize that, right? All right. Yeah, we got some things to talk about. Again, this is a Star Wars heavy episode, so I do want to talk a good bit about Star Wars. But before we get into that, there are some things that I want to discuss in regards to Aquaman 2. Because, well, it's not looking too good for the upcoming DCEU. And really the final DCEU film. Let's see. If we throw this up here. Reportedly, there's a scene that has caused people in the test screenings to walk out. And if you've happened to see the trailer, we do know the trailer has some characters in it, specifically one character, which people believe is the reason that people are walking out. Let's see here. So Grace Randolph, which I don't even want to talk about her, but she basically has stated that this is true. People have been walking out. However, My Time to Shine on Twitter claims that this report is correct. The report notes that the viewers walked out from a free screening of Aquaman in the Lost Kingdom over a very specific moment, one in which Aquababy, the child of Jason Momoa's Arthur Curry and Amber Heard's Mara, is born. So this one is this is a bit strange. This is a bit strange. The inclusion of Aquababy has been a controversial one. This is because the character is killed off in its earliest comic book appearances by Black Manta. And being that Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is playing Black Manta in Aquaman 2, it could explain why viewers would have walked out during the scene. Other users add that it seems as though Aquababy isn't going to survive. Would that, let me ask you this, would that make you want to walk out of a movie if you saw a baby die? I don't know. If people are walking out because of that, that's what it is. It just seems like people are trying to find a reason, whatever reason they can find, to rag on the upcoming Aquaman film. They want to find reason to sit there and basically say, look, this movie's bad. Look, people walked out. Look, you shouldn't go see it. Look this, look that. Instead of just saying, okay, yeah, people walk out of test screenings. This isn't the first time people walk out of test screenings. People walk out of test screenings all the time. Not only that, but it's not like the people that stayed for the test screening have come out and complained about it. Now, obviously, they can't. Blah, blah, blah. But normally with high-end test screenings, people will come out and you'll start to hear rumblings of what people have said. I get that months and months ago, there were rumors that the people at the test screenings didn't like the film. There has been a lot redone, reshot, retold for the movie to this point. So these last two test screenings, I believe, are pretty recent. I don't know. I feel like there's just something. Trooper Geo says, no! I just think there's something that people just want to find a reason to bitch and complain and whine and cry and make people not want to see this. Am I going to sit there and say that it's a certain sect of fans trying to do this? No. I just think that there's enough hatred towards DC right now that they're just trying to make a big deal out of something that, well, isn't a big deal at all. Trooper Geo says Hollywood needs to be more ballsy. Babies die all the time in real life, whether that be from famine, war, miscarriages, etc. I don't see why depicting a baby dying on screen should cause such outrage. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I say that all the time. When it comes to film, when it comes to entertainment, if you're going to tackle a a moment of like intense, it's something that happens in life. I don't think that it should be held back. Walking Dead is a perfect example of this for me. I don't know if anybody listening or watching has ever read the comic The Walking Dead, but there's a baby in the comic, and the child is killed in the comic. Spoilers: the child is killed in the comic. They didn't do that in the show. Now, some people want to say, "Oh, they were trying to subvert expectations." It's for those who did watch or read the comic prior to that. But I think it was just they were afraid to. I think that they were afraid for the backlash that they would get for killing a baby on screen. And you don't even need to technically kill the baby on screen, but just the understanding and knowing that the baby was killed or died in some form or fashion just gets people in an uproar. And I think it's ridiculous. Holy crap. Triton agreed with Trooper here. If Aqua Baby does get killed off, mad props to James Wan having balls. That said, it'd be crazy tonal whiplash in a film that looks overly garish and silly. True, but let's not, we've seen, take a look at something like James Gunn. Look at the Guardians of the Galaxy films. There are some heavy moments in those movies. Very heavy moments. Yet it's silly at times and fun at times, but you're still able. It all comes down to writing and how you write it and how it's put together. And I think that's the thing. I think if you sit there and if people are going to sit there and complain about Aquaman and the possibility of Aquaman's baby being killed, then just don't go see the movie if you think that's going to bother you. But don't, there's no reason to freak out about it, especially if it's true to the lore. What is it? Like, what do you want? Do you want comics? Do you want superhero movies to be true to the lore, true to the source material? Or do you not want it to be true to the source material? That's something that fans can't come to an agreement on anymore, because it's all you ever hear are people saying, well, it needs to be true to the comics. And you have other people over here, well, we don't need it true to the comics. We want this. It's just, it's annoying. It really is annoying. Cream Pie Lars. Would the Kenobi series be better if Obi-Wan and Leia had ended up together? I think that's the kind of stuff James Gunn would have done. We're not talking about Kenobi right now, Mr. Cream Pie Lars. But that's a bit that's disturbing. And no, that isn't something that James Gunn would have done. We know what James Gunn does when it comes to movies. You just take a look at the Guardians films, and yes, he does have that raunchiness, and he likes to make sexual innuendos and jokes in his more adult content. But if he's sticking to a more young adult PG-13 rating, we see what he did and how he handled that with Guardians. Trooper, insert John Bernthal. No, wait, meme after reading the last comments. Oh man. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I want to know what you think about this whole thing that's going on with Aquaman 2, people walking out. Are you excited about seeing it? Are you going to see it? I know I'm gonna see it. I'm not as excited as I probably was at one time, but I think this is a non-issue. I think people just want to bitch or freak out just to bitch and freak out, because wrong button. But what the hell? Let's just, rag on the DC as much as possible. Let's try and say, even I doubt Gunn would have done that Obi-Wan Leia thing. I hope anyway. Oh man. All right, so let's go to the next topic here. We're going to just cover this one real quickly. I don't want to stick too much on it because I really want to talk about Star Wars, especially Ahsoka. Ahsoka was excellent this week, so I want to talk about that. But Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger wants to quiet the noise regarding culture war issues, and states that they are not healthy for Disney's business. Now, this comes from Bounding into Comics, great website. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not going to really get into too much here. I actually have a video I created, I made. I just have to get it edited and posted probably within the next day or two about this issue. But I wanted to talk about it here because here's the thing. You see right now what's going on with the writer strike. We have the writer strikes going on right now. People are freaking out. People are the writers want more money. The actors want more money. And then you have the writers come out and talk about how it's important to push their agendas, their world-changing agendas, especially with the LGBTQ crowd. But then you have this man, Bob Iger, who is quite possibly the biggest studio head in Hollywood right now, saying, I'm going to put an end to that. We're not going to be doing that anymore. It's really interesting to see how both sides are very, very different on this. The thing is, we have to see him follow through with it. That is the big thing. I want to see Bob Iger follow through with this. I want to see him actually tell the heads of his, subdivisions, Lucasfilm and Marvel and Pixar and all that, and tell them, look, enough with the agenda pushing. Make good entertainment, good entertaining films. That's what people want. That should be the number one priority, not pushing a message. That should be the number one priority. Because studios have lost that. Writers have lost that. Everybody thinks that they have to push a message. And the few shows, the few movies that come out that don't do that, that aren't pushing some sort of message in your face, well, those are the ones that are a little more successful than not. But let me know your thoughts on this. I encourage you to go to Bounding into Comics and read this. It is really interesting. Like I said, I didn't want to stick to that topic too long. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think that they should have that Bob Iger's right, that they should just stay away from this culture war crap that's going on, whether it's the trans movement, the feminism movement, any political movement that's going on? Do you think that they should be pulling out of that? I think so. I think every company should right now. I think it shouldn't just stop at Hollywood. I think it needs to go down through all companies in this country because it has divided. And I know someone like you, Triton, who doesn't live in the United States, but there is a division in this country right now because you have companies pushing something that the majority of the country just doesn't want to hear, doesn't want to see, doesn't care about. They are pandering to the few, and there's getting pushback, big pushback. You see a company like Bud Light, Budweiser is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, beer distributor, beer maker in the country, and their Bud Light brand was the number one brand of theirs, and it's had record-breaking lows and has become one of the most despised beer companies today because of how they pandered to the trans agenda, trans community. So that's just my thoughts. If you want to say anything, go for it. I will have a video that's a little more in depth, more of my thoughts on that coming in the next couple days. Oh boy. All right, let's get into it because this is what I want to talk about. Nope. I can't press the right button for some reason. There we go. All right. So Ahsoka, latest episode came out. I have to say, while this episode was a bit slow, it wasn't slow to the point where it was boring. There wasn't a lot of action. There wasn't much action in this episode, but that there didn't need to be. After an episode like what we got last week, for them to kind of take a step back, take things a little slow, and build the story, I think was perfect here. This was the episode that we got our live action debut of Thrawn, which was phenomenal. I think it was great. I know that people have this whole idea, this whole problem with Lars Mikkelsen playing Thrawn, but honestly, I think he did phenomenal. And I think he's going to do great. I mean, obviously, he was the voice in Rebels, so it's just going to be even better now. I do love, this new galaxy that they've gone to, and we see this new planet. What is it called? I think I have the name here. Maybe not. Nah, I don't have it here. But they're on a new planet outside of the galaxy, and it's cool. It's cool. It's different. It's nice to see them going somewhere else. And what's really cool is it seems this is the home planet of the Night Sisters. The Night Sisters of Dathomir actually come from this planet, and they were the first to learn to traverse using the Purgles, the space whales, to get to the other galaxy, which I think is a really cool little tidbit of information we never had before. But seeing Night Sisters in live action, Morgan is not a Night Sister. I always say she is, but she really isn't. These are the Night Sisters here. It was really cool. Really, really cool to see. Excuse me. I like how they called out Sabine, saying that she reeks of Jedi. That's just kind of cool little spin, and they know, like, they understand, and they know that kind of stuff. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh, yeah, again, the introduction to Thrawn with the Chimera showing up. And I loved how the Chimera was all just, it's been 10 years. It's a mess. It's in shambles. And then you see the night troopers, and everybody's like, oh, are they zombie troopers? I think they are. I think they are. Why call them night troopers if they aren't, resurrected or controlled by the Night Sisters? To me, I think that's just a really cool, fantastic aspect, something different that we've never really seen in live action Star Wars before. And then you see next to Thrawn here, his right-hand guard, his right-hand man named Enoch. And Triton here says it best. He goes, Enoch's Roman gladiator-esque stormtrooper armor is instantly iconic. It is. It really is. There's people that are complaining about it. Like, why complain about something like that? It's cool. It's different. We want different. We want cool. We want to see fun things in Star Wars. This is something different and cool. I just don't understand why people are so weird about stuff like that. Let's see. What else did you say, Triton? I've not watched any Rebels or read either Thrawn trilogy, but it's testament to Filoni and Lars Mikkelsen that just from the few things I know about Thrawn, I can tell the show nailed the character. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no other better way to put it. They nailed Thrawn. Oh, he's not as skinny as he is in an animated show. Dude's 60 years old, and it's not like he's fat. People are just ridiculous, I tell you. So we have Sabine, who is freed and allowed to go find Ezra finally, which is really cool, because we're going to finally see Ezra. Yay. And she kind of comes across these little rock people, turtle things. I thought they were great. I really thought they were great. But you have Baylan and Shin actually chasing after her. Shin's a little upset because Shin was like, Baylan, you said that she'd be free, that she'd be fine to go and do her own thing. And he goes, look, she can go find who she finds, but we're going after her. And Shin was kind of taken aback by that and not very happy, but Thrawn allows them to go and hunt down Sabine, and they go chasing after her. And they kind of stop at one point where Sabine actually had to fight off a few little baddies. And Baylan starts to talk about how the Jedi were, and how the Jedi, he missed the idea of the Jedi, but he understands that everything happens and everything will always happen again, whether it's the Empire, the Sith, the Jedi. It just is all cyclical. It always continues to happen. But then he mentions something, that he's here because he was being called. Something or someone is calling him. And I know there's a lot of speculation online, some really cool speculations, specifically one of Abeloth, who has a connection to the Mortis brother, sister, and father from the Clone Wars. It's really cool if that's where they're going with it, but I'm interested. I'm interested to see where they're taking Baylan. It just, sucks. It doesn't look like it's going to get wrapped up this season. Hopefully it does, but it doesn't look like it's going to. And Ray Stevenson passed away, so we're not going to get to see the conclusion of that story. Maybe, hopefully we do. Hopefully they finish it up in the next 2 episodes, but I don't know. I don't know. And then there he is. There's our boy Ezra, finally in live action, wearing what appears to be like chainmail underneath his clothes. And he's excited to get home. There's some people who are saying, "Oh, I think he's a bad guy now." I don't know about that. I can't imagine that. You have Thrawn and Morgan talking about how they're going to be going back to the other galaxy, that they're loading some things into the Chimera to take with them. It looks like the Night Sisters are going to go with them. So I'm curious what the ultimate plan is here, because we thought it was just something simple as he's going to come and rally the Imperial remnants and bring them all together and, forge an attack against the New Republic. But it might be something different. I don't know. This episode was excellent. It was a great episode. A lot of story that's really going to build things up. We didn't see much of Ahsoka. She was in the very beginning of the episode with her and young Hao or young Hai Young or whatever his name is, the droid, and Hu Yang. That's it. And you find out that Hu Yang used to tell the young Jedi stories, and he talks about story 1, story 2, story 3, and Ahsoka's like, yeah, story 1 is the best, and then she asked him to tell her one of the stories, and he starts off a long time ago in a galaxy far, far. I thought that was great. Everybody's like, oh, is it Hu Yang that tells all these stories from Star Wars? Who knows? But it's still great. It's cool. I love seeing that kind of stuff. Just little things like that are really, really cool. I do really love it. Let's see. Hope we all right. Triton says, hope we get a scene where a bunch of night troopers get blown up or mangled and just get back. It would be a cool way to reveal they are undead, like back up or something. Yeah, that'd be dope. That would be dope. Also, it's perfect that Thrawn's second in command has a very ornate Roman death mask type helmet. Thrawn's artistic influence definitely has seeped into Enoch's mindset. Yeah, agree. Trooper also says, not to mention Roman death masks were worn by descendants of those who the mask was made after. Perhaps this death mask is in memoriam of those who were lost in exile. Ezra looking like he's off the cover of Passion of the Christ. Yeah, he definitely does look like maybe a Jesus or Moses type of character there for sure. It is funny. Triton says, I was literally going to type what you said regarding Baylan. If Baylan survives the season, how the hell are they going to handle Ray Stevenson's death? Look, Ray Stevenson has been phenomenal as Baylan in this. There's so much nuance to his character. There's so much that gravitas that he brings to the screen. It's going to be difficult, but I truly hope that they decide to go the route of recasting. I think recasting would be the ideal option, if only because we need to see his story finished. So yeah, if he survives, I hope they do something great and they bring in somebody who has that same kind of presence on screen, but will make the role their own. It is a shame and it's sad, when the last, whether this is his last performance or not, but one of the last performances of an actor, you see how great it actually is. It is unfortunate. Trent says, I consider Ahsoka the real sequel trilogy. Makes sense that the character to follow after the Skywalkers would be the non-Skywalker character with the best claim to being an honorary Skywalker. I'm hearing this a lot. Not necessarily the Skywalker aspect of it, but the idea that this is how the sequels, in a sense, should have been. It should have been something like, we don't want to just see the First Order. Like, why is the First Order there? Like, seeing the Empire, the remnants coming back together and trying once, trying twice to get, like having that flip where, the original trilogy had the Rebel Alliance just really small and just, they just kept trying to persist and get, a victory or big victories. they could have flipped that, and I just didn't see that happen. Trooper says Balin is one of the most three-dimensional characters I've seen from Filoni. His mysterious aura that he is covered in makes me want to know more. It is. He's great. He's great. He's such a great character, and he's a character that once all is said and done, we need to see the end of this arc, this story that he is, this journey he's currently on. We need to see the end of this. But I wouldn't mind. Doesn't need to be a show, doesn't need to be animation. It could be a book, it could be even a video game. But to see a young Balin during Order 66 and then during the Empire, what he's doing off where he's at, that kind of thing, I think it'd be kind of cool to see that. To see why wasn't he around? What was he doing during that time? I think it'd be really interesting. But we'll see where this journey takes us, because maybe we find that all out. Maybe we see that. I don't know. But let me know. Let me know your thoughts on Ahsoka to this point. I think it's great. I can't wait to see the next 2 episodes. Like I keep saying, this is the show that has excited me about Star Wars again. I'm more excited about Star Wars now than I have been since episode 8. Before episode 8 came out, I was so excited for Star Wars. After seeing it, my excitement kind of dropped a little bit. But let me know your thoughts on Ahsoka. All right. So let's get into the main topic here, because Star Wars, we were just talking about it. Star Wars is in this place of flux. And you said it best that this is the trilogy that people want. So is this going to dictate Star Wars moving forward? What do you think? Like that's a great question. I call this Dave Filoni Star Wars. We have the George Lucas era, which were everything prior to being sold to Disney. Excuse me. And then we have the quote unquote Disney era that came in the last 10 years or so. And it hasn't been great, with a few exceptions of things. But I truly feel over the last few years that Dave Filoni's fingers have been involved with anything Star Wars. Whether it's, The Mandalorian Season 1, 2, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian Season... Was there a Season 3 yet? Yeah, Season 3. There's 3 seasons, right? The Ahsoka series. We got Skeleton Crew coming out. And I feel like these are all great examples of Star Wars going in the right direction. Are they perfect? No, by no means they're not. But the thing that Dave Filoni understands is he understands the lore of Star Wars. So he understands when these shows are being made, he understands how to build the world around these characters. He understands that, yes, people want to see Skywalker. Yes, people want to see these characters, these legacy characters that they grew up loving. But we don't need to just get that. We can get other new characters as well. And that is something that Dave Filoni has handled so well through this time. With the sequel trilogies, that wasn't the case. They misread what the fans wanted. They thought that they could get away with making a trilogy that had very, very little to do with the legacy characters. And fans pushed back. That's what excited people about the sequel trilogy was, oh, we're going to get to see Luke, Han, and Leia together again. That's amazing. And that didn't happen. Then they gave us a Solo film, which I really enjoyed, but they misread the room. People weren't ready for a new Han Solo at that point in time. We were still seeing Harrison Ford, or just saw Harrison Ford on this big screen recently as Han Solo. So when you take a look at the and I really say there's like 2 factions of Star Wars since 2012 the Filoni side has been massively successful, whether it's Rebels. Resistance wasn't great. It was okay, very childish, but it wasn't great. Rebels was phenomenal. And you have the Mandalorians, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and we're gonna get Skeleton Crew. There's something to be said about all that. But that's not all I want to talk about here. It really isn't. Well, let's see here. We got a bunch of stuff here. Triton says Battlefront 2017's post-launch support getting canned immediately before the Star Wars TV deluge is just looking more and more stupid. Look at the stuff they could have added just from Ahsoka. I don't even know what you're really talking about there. I didn't even know that there was a bunch of stuff that got canned from Battlefront 2 from 2017. Trooper says Ahsoka has been pretty all right so far. Not a perfect show, but I've been having fun with it. 7 out of 10. Triton, Filoni worked under Lucas on Clone Wars, and Lucas, according to Bryce Dallas Howard, considers Filoni as akin to his son. He's the rightful heir. Here's the thing. I don't think that during Clone Wars, Lucas ever intended to sell Star Wars until he sold Star Wars, until he sold Lucasfilm. So I don't think during the Clone Wars, while they were making the Clone Wars, I don't think he was necessarily training Dave Filoni to take over in any way, shape, or form. I think it was more of Dave Filoni just being a sponge around George and learning and taking in as much as he could to understand the show that he was helping George Lucas make. So when it comes down to it, he still has that relationship with George. To this day, he shows up on set from time to time to see different things. And I think that relationship, I wouldn't be surprised if Filoni would call up George from time to time and bounce some ideas off of him. I just feel like that's a very possible thing that could be happening. But again, I see what you're saying. I've always said myself that Filoni should be the rightful person to be running Star Wars, not Lucasfilm, Star Wars. I think he should be running the Star Wars brand. He should be, he should be the quote unquote George Lucas of it. He should be the one that is in every story meeting, is in every plan for upcoming Star Wars shows, movies, animation, books, everything. However, does Filoni want to do that? He's very happy doing what he's doing right now. So maybe he doesn't want to do that. And you can't fault the guy for not wanting to have that much put on it. But you have to sit there and see that what he's done over these last 11 years, he has done the most impactful storytelling in Star Wars. He's been part of the most impactful storytelling in Star Wars over the last 11 years. Triton says, also, it wasn't until after the sequel trilogy was done that Disney stopped pretending the prequel trilogy exists and realized that it's largely loved nowadays. Yeah. I won't say they ignored the prequels, but they misread. Disney just misread. Lucasfilm under Disney misread everything when it came to Star Wars. They didn't understand what the fans wanted. They didn't understand what the fans liked. The kids that grew up with the prequels in the 2000s love the prequels today. Those who grew up with the original trilogy in the 70s and 80s didn't like the prequels. But if you think about it, they're the ones who are in their 40s and 50s these days. Their 60s, their 70s. They're not the ones they need to be worrying about. They need to worry about the younger ones, and they worried about the wrong crowd there. That's not to say that they shouldn't, give both section of fans what they wanted, but they just decided to ignore the prequels. You take a look at all of the rumors of how Hayden Christensen was going to pop up in one of the sequel trilogy films, how they had and this isn't even a prequel thing. This is a original trilogy thing. In The Force Awakens, Rey was supposed to see the fight between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. She was supposed to see that from another angle. They shot that scene. and they didn't put it in. That would have been a scene that everybody would have loved. They would have loved to have seen that. It's things like that that Disney just doesn't understand. But someone like Filoni does. He understands that sometimes you throw in those Easter eggs. Again, when you do fan service, it's not bad as long as it fits and it's done well. Absolutely. Filoni learned and understands the assignment. They totally ignored the prequel trilogy. JJ openly disliked them and wanted Starkiller Base to blow up Coruscant. Yeah, about that. Look, we can go on and discuss how and why what Disney has done to Star Wars has been despicable, because they have done so much damage to this franchise. This is a franchise that, look, you take a look at The Force Awakens, it is the highest grossing film in North America of all time. Domestically, it is the highest grossing film ever. It's one of the top 5 grossing films of all time. People wanted Star Wars. That's not telling me that just that the movie was good. That's telling me that people wanted Star Wars. They were itching for it. They wanted it. And how do you go from that, from the excitement, the desire to love and want to see Star Wars, to where it's been the last few years? And that's just mishandling it. Trooper says, oddly enough, I know a buddy of mine who's the same age as me, he's 19, who hates both the prequels and sequels and is adamant that there are only 3 Star Wars movies. He hates the prequels and sequels. Look, I get the distaste for the sequels. I do get that. But the prequels, they're not perfect films, but they're Star Wars films. They feel Star Wars. They are Star Wars. I'm not a big fan of The Phantom Menace. I'm just not. I love Attack of the Clones probably more than a lot of people do. And I do love Revenge of the Sith. It's one of my favorite films. Period. Favorite films. But to sit there and ignore them, I think, sometimes people are a little childish in that regard. I think that it's an interesting angle for someone of my age bracket to take, since we both grew up with the prequels together. And that's the thing. You're right. The prequels were the Star Wars around through the 2000s. I mean, from 1999 until, 2000, I'll even go up to 2012. I will, because you had the Clone Wars cartoon that came out in 2008. So you had from 99 to 2012, this era of Star Wars that was being explored. That was just different. It was interesting. It was cool. It was building on the lore. It's weird that, that somebody at your age just wasn't a fan of it. Being that you're 19, though, you would have been born, what, in 2004? 2004? That's right. Is that right? Man, I'm old. If you were born in 2004, that's the year I graduated. Oh, man. Terrible at math. People who claim the sequel trilogy will be loved in the future like the prequel trilogy is nowadays. People who claim the sequel trilogy will be loved in the future like the prequel trilogy isn't today, despite being hated upon release, need to shut up. The prequels weren't broken. The sequels are. I agree. Very much so. The sequels are a broken trilogy. They really are. Or not the prequels. The sequels are a broken trilogy. The prequels are not. The prequels are great. The prequels they build on the lore, whereas the sequels try to deconstruct the lore and make their own. And they failed at it. Trooper Geo, granted, I was 12 when the sequels came out. I was in the target audience and I didn't really like The Force Awakens. See, here's the thing. The Force Awakens, I will say, did pander to the old crowd, the original trilogy crowd, more than anything else. For my kids, how old were my kids when that came out? 15, or like 5, 6 years old, somewhere around there. My 2 boys went and saw him. They liked Kylo Ren because he was cool looking and had a cool lightsaber. They didn't care about the story, and they don't really go back and watch those movies today. any of them, because you take a look at The Force Awakens, it was pandering to the original trilogy crowd. The Last Jedi is just a beautifully made movie, but the story is just too large, too convoluted, and not interesting for kids. Like, think about that. Like, I was 7, 8, 9 years old, sitting in my living room watching A New Hope, Empire, Return of the Jedi, back to back to back on Friday nights, on Saturday nights, and I was never bored. Even during, some of the Empire stuff, even during the beginning of Return of the Jedi, I would actually fast forward through the Return of the Jedi, beginning of that. But you would sit there and you would watch them and be excited. Kids today, you can't expect a kid to sit and watch The Last Jedi. You just can't. It is boring. There's not anything going on in that movie. It's boring. Prequel trilogy, Triton says, prequel trilogy is peak Star Wars. Original trilogy is revolutionary cinema. Sequel trilogy can eat shit. And I say this as someone who unironically loves The Last Jedi. You need to go away. If you like The Last Jedi, go away. Just kidding. Triton says, confession, I like the Anakin Padme romance scenes in Attack of the Clones. Why? Because I like the actors, the characters, and am invested in the story said romance is part of. I'm the same way. I love their romance in it. I love, the dialogue isn't great. Yeah, the way Hayden plays the character is a little wooden, but there's something about it that is just interesting. Just seeing the relationship kind of come together through Attack of the Clones, and that moment where they finally express their feelings for each other. It's one of those things, like, I don't know. There's just something about it. I love it too. I've always said I loved it. I don't know why people don't. All right, but here's the thing. Let's get moving here, because let me see if I can find it here. My thumbnail, my feature image for this was this: the reunion we all deserve, the reunion we will get? ? Dave Filoni's giving it to us. He's going to give it to us. Now, think about this, all right? We just talked about Ahsoka. We just talked about how great and how well he's handled that. And here's the thing. They're utilizing the Heir to the Empire story roughly. Just roughly. I know it's not exact. I read the Heir to the Empire trilogy. It's not anywhere near the exact same thing. But the character, the idea of Thrawn trying to rebuild the Empire, that's what the original Thrawn trilogy was. So here we sit today with a very similar story. But who played a big part in those books? They were a continuation of Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, and Han Solo. Do not be surprised if we see some version of this in the Dave Filoni movie that we get. Obviously, they're going to be younger. They're not going to be older like this. But we are going to see this. I have no doubt in my mind. No doubt. Why? Because Dave Filoni knows how mad fans are that we never got to see that again. This is something that everybody wanted to see. They wanted to see Leia, Han, and Luke and Chewie, 3PO and R2 in the Falcon together again. We wanted to see it. Even the prequel fans wanted to see it. Filoni's going to give it to us as he takes the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and brings them together to help set in motion the sequel trilogy era. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Trooper Geo, I remember when me and my grandfather would watch Empire together when I was around 3 and 4. My grandfather was the person who introduced me to Star Wars. For me, I've always had that attachment to it. That's beautiful, man. It's great. I remember getting the films, and I got them when the THX remasters came out 95, 96, somewhere around there. And my mother was buying them one at a time at our local supermarket as they were coming out, because I think they came out like every 3 months. I think A New Hope came out then 3 months later, Empire 3 months later, something like that. And she was buying them. And I was watching for the first time there. And, New Hope came in. And I just watched it constantly. Then Empire came in. I watched that constantly. And then Return of the Jedi. And then that was my favorite. I watched that constantly. Then at our local OmniMax theater, which is like a big dome theater where you like sit in chairs and the screens above you and all around you. They used to play and have a documentary on the making of Star Wars there. I saw that thing maybe 3, 4, 5 times maybe in that theater. And I was just like 10 years old. That's how invested I was in Star Wars. As a 10-year-old, I'm watching documentaries on how a movie was made. That's how much I loved Star Wars. And for me, it was my escape from reality. I had some issues growing up at school. And because of this, like when I got home, like I didn't want to go hang out with the friends I had. I didn't want to go out. I just wanted to stay home. And my friends became Han, Luke, and Leia. Like those are the people I hung out with on the weekends. And sure, I had friends. They would come over. But the crazy thing is all my friends I had were also huge Star Wars fans. So what we do when they came over my house, we'd watch Star Wars. We'd play with the action figures. We'd have a great time. Star Wars it's such a big part of my life and was a huge part of my life. And to see what happened to it over the last 10 years was very disappointing to me. I mean, I remember being in the theater in 2005 for the Revenge of the Sith. And when it came up, I was 19 at the time. When Star Wars popped up and it started, I literally teared up a little bit, because to me, I believe that was the last time I would get to see Star Wars in the theater, because we thought that was it. George Lucas talked so much about how, oh, this is it for him. He's not making any more after this. And so it was an emotional experience. Maybe that's why I have such an attachment to that movie. I love that movie, but you just, Star Wars means so much to so many people, in so many ways, in different ways. And to see what happened over the last 10 years, and that's something that Disney takes for granted or doesn't understand, that there are fans, there are these fans out there, that this isn't just stories about people with laser swords and spaceships. No, this is something more. It's something deeper. It's something bigger, and they need to take care with it. And George Lucas understood that, but he understood that the fans would, in some capacity, they would go with him on the journey of his vision. So even though he wasn't going to cater to the fans with the prequels, he was going to follow through with his own vision. He knew that the fans would follow him. Where are we at here? Here we go. Triton says Harrison Ford only returned to The Force Awakens if Han got killed off in the same film. The instant J.J. Lucasfilm decided Luke would be in exile, the sequel trilogy reunion hope was shattered. Yeah, but it's called writing. It's writing a better story then. It's, writing and understanding what people are excited about. I remember the build up to The Force Awakens. I remember people sitting there talking about just that, seeing Han, Luke, and Leia together again, how excited they were to see that. And then it never happened. And Trooper goes, when Revenge of the Sith came out, you were the same age as I am now. Damn. Yeah, man, don't remind me how old I am. All right, I'm sick of it. My 20-year high school graduation reunion is next year. 20 years I've been graduated. It's insane to me. Absolutely insane. Triton says the solution should have been to have Luke, Han, and Leia unite in Episode 7's final battle, and then have Han's death be this massive sacrifice that has to happen for Luke, Leia, Chewie, etc. to survive. That's not bad, man. It's a good idea that they should have done that. And it would have had a bigger impact had they witnessed it. The fact that in The Last Jedi, the only mention Han gets and Luke realizing that Han is dead is when Chewie breaks in and he's like, "Where's Han?" And that's it. Like, come on. Come on. I know that there's a little discussion with him and Leia at the end, but regardless, that to me, it was just bad. Trooper saying, not trying to make you feel old or anything. It's just crazy to me that there's still new generations of fans coming in. Yeah. Yeah. And there's going to be new fans coming in. Here's the thing. We got this Rey movie coming out here soon, which I'm not against. I've been somebody, I think Rey could be a great character. Rey Skywalker, not so much, but I think Rey could be a great character. And they can rectify that in a following trilogy with good writing and a plan, an idea. But I also don't believe that they should end the quote unquote Skywalker saga with episode 9. I think that this Rey film, if they're going to continue this idea that she is a Skywalker, it needs to be episode 10. It needs to be episode 10, and it needs to continue that franchise, that saga. Star Wars needs the Skywalkers. It needs the Skywalkers. I did a video on this the other day that nobody wanted to watch for some unknown reason, unfortunately. I think only like one person watched the video. I don't know why. It's like my worst video I've ever made on YouTube ever. Analytic wise or stats wise. I think it's a damn good video, but nobody's watching it. But no, the Star Wars is Skywalker. Skywalker is Star Wars. I'm all for the ideas of doing spin-offs, doing different things, going to the Old Republic, doing New Republic or High Republic, doing the Ahsoka series, doing different things. I don't mind new characters, exploring different areas of the galaxy, of the universe, of the galaxies, I guess we can say now. But there always has to be a Skywalker saga going on. There has to. This idea, the reason why people sit there and say, "Oh, I'm sick of everything being connected to the Skywalkers," blah, blah, blah. You know why? You know why people are sick of it? It's not because why they're saying. It's because the sequels were crap. That's why. So people were sitting there saying, "I'm sick of it." If the sequels were written well, if they were beloved, if people who say they liked it actually truly did like it, because I'm telling you, most of the people who say they like it don't actually like it. They just want to be different. But those people who say they actually did like it, who did like it, actually liked it, or if they were good, people wouldn't be saying that. They'd be itching for more Skywalker. They'd be itching for more story part of that saga. And the proof is in the pudding. Look at Ahsoka. The biggest episode, the biggest applause that we've seen in Star Wars in a decade. Well, not a decade, in like 6 years. Was when Anakin Skywalker showed up in Ahsoka. I can't say 6 years, because the other big applause that happened, the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, when Luke Skywalker showed up. And then again in the Book of Boba Fett, a whole episode with Luke Skywalker. You see where I'm going here? People love the Skywalkers. People want to see the Skywalkers, but they want to see real Skywalkers. They don't want to see just Rey Skywalker. No, they want to see the Skywalkers. And that's what Star Wars needs. So go do Old Republic stuff. Go do High Republic. Go do whatever you want. Go to a planet and have a show just about, them mining something, or who knows, do Andor. That's fine. Having that stuff is fine. But you can't forget about the Skywalkers. You can't. Triton says, as long as Rise of Skywalker is still canon, the saga is still broken in the sequel trilogy, unsalvageable in my eyes. No, it can be salvaged. It could just be like that blip on the radar. If they do a 10, 11, and 12, do it well. Having Rey and Finn be the main characters, where Finn is the Jedi in training, and really the catalyst of all the events that take place. I think it could be salvaged. I do. Trooper says, what would be interesting is if Rey has a child and then her child ends up being Cade Skywalker from Legend. I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I have a couple ideas for what they could do to bring the true lineage of Skywalker back. Whether it's having an offspring of Ben Solo we didn't know about, Luke having an offspring that he didn't even know about, or going the clone route, which I don't like, but they can go the clone route where they clone Luke Skywalker, something like that. They can get away with and truly bring the Skywalker lineage back. The problem is, and this is even something that George Lucas wasn't 100%, sold on. Look, yes, Anakin brought balance to the Force. He brought balance by destroying the Sith once and for all and bringing the even balance of the Force back. But that doesn't mean you can't have dark Force users who are either A, trying to reignite the Sith, or B, try and create something different and new. And Disney Star Wars just didn't understand that. Like, they just didn't get that. They instead of making Kylo Ren a Sith, instead of making Snoke a Sith, they just had him as a Force user, and they didn't really give us any kind of background or backstory to why they're utilizing the dark side of the Force and how it's different from the Sith. But then, boom, it comes around, and it's just Palpatine. It's just him. Somehow Palpatine returns. Like, come on. Triton says, I can't accept the saga ending with 2/3 of it rendered meaningless by Palpatine's return. Triton says, retcon Rise of Skywalker make Colin Trevorrow's Duel of Fates, and I'll be more inclined to agree that the sequel trilogy can be salvaged. Yeah, I didn't hate the Duel of the Fates. It's definitely better than the Rise of Skywalker, but I think it even could have been better than Duel of the Fates. Because I did like how they brought it around back to really connecting to the prequels and the original trilogy in Duel of the Fates more so than the Rise of Skywalker. But what I'd like to see is the full movie that J.J. Abrams made. I don't want to say it. Release the Abrams cut. Release the J.J. Abrams cut. Honestly, I think that I've heard rumblings that his movie is vastly better than the one that was released, and for good reason, and for different reasons, that there was a different ending, things like that. There's a difference between restoring balance for centuries and restoring balance for less than a generation. And when the Sith return, it's the same fucker who should have been dead. Agreed. Triton says, it's obvious that pretty much all my sequel trilogy issues come from the Rise of Skywalker, because they do. It is. It's very obvious. And I don't blame you, because I have the same issue. I do. I have the same issue. But I'm wrapping it up here, guys. This is a great discussion. I want to know your thoughts on the future of Star Wars. Where do you think it's going? Do you think we're going to see the reunion of a lifetime? Han, Luke, and Leia together on the Millennium Falcon again? Do you think Filoni will give it to us? Because I think he will. I think he knows he has to. And he knows that. Because if he doesn't, people are going to be mad. Because this is an ample opportunity. This is the greatest opportunity we've had since Episode 7. This is the best opportunity we've had since Episode 7 to see that happen. Trade says, great Star Wars chat, my dude. I love Star Wars. I chat Star Wars. I'll chat Star Wars anytime with anybody. Any day. All the time. I love Star Wars. But yes, I think we're going to see something great with Star Wars coming up with Dave Filoni. Is it perfect? No. But neither was George Lucas's Star Wars. It wasn't perfect. We're not ever going to see a perfect Star Wars. But what Dave Filoni is doing right now is the best that we've seen in 10 plus years. Hands down. There's no debating that. Don't even come at me with that, because there's no debating it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe. Share this with your friends, family, aunts, uncles, grandparents, nieces, nephews. your dog, your cat, your hamster. Share it with all them. Tell them to watch me and stuff. Yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll talk at all of you later.